Gonna switch to. All right, now everything should be unmuted now. Hello, everyone. I think yes, we should be able to hear you.
Yes, hello. Can you see
Hello.
us?
Yes, it looks like it's working.
Okay,
Hello,
okay.
guys.
So we are from Poland, Rzeszów. Martin is known from Magic Gradients, and we are here
Yeah.
to learn about Comet from you. So here you go. Here we go.
Awesome, excited. Okay, I'm gonna put filters on you just to make sure we don't get extra background noise. And you guys can join in, ask questions whenever you want. Those of you who are joining live on Twitch, ask questions. This is an active thing. It's not just us sitting here. You guys are part of the show, so ask questions. All right. So, starting out, I am going to. Oh, I guess they dropped their video. I don't have a screen of just me. I should add one of those. It's all right. We'll leave it like that for now. So, talking about this stuff, I want to talk a little about Comet and kind of go through some of the basics and what it is, and maybe talk a little about some of the history and how it started. And Comet is a new framework. It's an MVU framework. Let's switch over to my desktop. That might be a little bit better. And a lot of people know Xamarin Forms and MVV. Let me close this. And like MVVM style, where you have a model view and a view model. And we've all seen the Xamarin Forms type code where you have your view and your view model and a different UI layer that is not directly tied. They're very rarely tied directly to each other. It's typically done with like XAML or some other markup style language. And that language difference can cause some issues from people, and there's a thin binding layer. Comet uses a new pattern called MVU, and that stands for Model View Update. And let me actually bring that same code I just closed. I shouldn't have closed it, and we'll talk a little bit about how this is different. So you'll notice that this code is a tad bit different because there's a method. This view has a method that creates the UI, and so there's going to be this method can be called and rebuilt whenever's needed. And so this thing can be built lots of times, and then there's a diffing process that figures out what needs to actually happen. So there's a virtual DOM going on here, and whenever certain things change, it's going to call this body method, and it will rebuild this body whenever it deems fit, say, hey, what needs to update, and then it'll update your app's UI accordingly. And I do have this sample running, and so you can see what this would look like. There's a vertical stack, and inside that vertical stack is an image, and the image has a clip shape of a circle on it. And then there's also an overlay with a circle that has a stroke of white and a line width of 4, and it also has a shadow of a radius of 10. And this is weird, it's new looking, and it's going to look very different from those of you coming from an MVU style. Hey Rogi, thanks for joining in. So it's going to look pretty different compared to what you're used to seeing. It's this, yeah, it's a Fluent style API. It's different. And there's a couple benefits to this though, because as I mentioned, the UI is used to being able to build this body diff and figure out what's going on. You can edit code while debugging without even stopping or changing anything and see what each of these things does. So like I just increased the line width, I could just comment out that overlay. What's it look like without that overlay? And it really brings your inner dev loop down to basically nothing. You write C# code, I haven't hit save, all I do is edit, and as I edit, you watch the UI instantly update and reflect those changes, which is really exciting. And it brings in lots of really fun things that can be done. And you can also do some interesting things when you start thinking about with how versus MVVM. Some of the benefits to this is when I'm building out a UI in Xamarin Forms or an MVVM style framework, and let's just say I have an activity indicator. If I have an activity indicator on the screen, it's always going to be there, and I just selectively hide it or remove it. I do some data binding and say, hey, if there's a certain number of things, get rid of it, else continue on. And so you just do this type of thing and it works, and it does pretty good. But the moment these UI start getting more complex, it gets kind of crazy. And you can't, since we are able to rebuild this body, we can start doing if statements in here. So dynamically switch out what this view is going to be based on state, which is really, really, really exciting. And so that'll take me to the next topic I kind of want to talk about is the state and how things work in here. So there's another one called Ride the Comet, I believe. All right. Sorry, there's some old sample code commented out in here that's playing with this. Let me go back to me doing something. I just broke it. Oh no! All right, I just crashed it. So this is a prototype. It's a proof of concept. It's early, and I was working on some things, and I might have broken something. So hopefully we're not in a bad state. All right, doesn't look like we are. All right, so Ride the Comet is a very basic sample. If you use add NuGets and do like file new Comet app, this is what you're going to get. And as I said, feel free to interrupt me or ask questions as we go. If I'm not explaining something well enough, let me know. Actually, that's more complicated of a sample than I wanted. I want even a more simple one. Let me go back to our samples. And I thought I had like a button sample. I do. That's the one I want. Hello, hello. Very basic. Why is pressing back crashing? All right. I definitely broke something. I rewrote some of this stuff yesterday and I broke it. It's all right. Going back doesn't work as of yesterday, so I won't do that anymore. Like I said, early prototype, and we are working off the latest dev branch. So I could switch to a more stable branch, but what is the fun in that? All right, so this button is in sample. If I find it in here, button sample 1. It's very, very basic. It has a vertical stack, and inside that vertical stack we have a button. And what it does is it increments a value. And you'll notice there's a state class here. This state was introduced to bring some more complex notification things to very basic data types. So an integer. If you just had like public int foo here, I don't know when that integer changes. There's no way for me to do things. So we've had this little helper class called state that just wraps those basic data types with like iNotify property changed. Things like that. So whenever we say count.value plus plus, we know what happened. And we did add some nice little things in here. You'll notice I still just did state that initial setting. I set it as 1. I can set it as 5. I can set it as whatever I want as that initial state. So, and you'll notice as I changed that incremented. So it now said 5. Now if I click increment value, please tell me I didn't break everything. This is the best demo ever, guys. I started working on a more complex app yesterday, and I realized, or not yesterday, I think it was last Friday. Last week I was working on something. I realized that I had a couple things wrong with bindings, and I was just talking to John Lipsky, who's helping with this project in his spare time, about how to fix these things, and yeah, I broke everything. Actually, I know exactly what that is. That is the new style stuff I implemented. Give me 2 seconds to change to a new little Skia control, which is pretty cool. Something else that's awesome in here is inside of, not platforms. Let's go to samples. We broke something with the clip shape on the style that we added those buttons, and that's what's causing that button not to work. I know that, and I have not fixed it yet. It's one of the few things that still needs fixed in the default stuff. So if I was to remove this style, those buttons will work again. So it was my material style breaking those buttons. Let me go back into that and my button will work. It's a problem with not doing a new demo. I'm using my sample project where I write all my little samples in, and it becomes a mess sometimes. Easily becomes a mess. A new sample, you would not have these issues, but hey, like I said, what's the fun in that? All right, button sample 1. Hey, now that's going to work. All right, now since I started typing on that, and we know what the state is in this app, we're able to transfer state during these hot reloads. So if I change this to 3, it should not change to 3 here because I've edited the state. Where you'll notice that first time it did because I hadn't changed anything. But now that I've clicked on it, I'm able to change and transfer over the state that's changed, which is really fun. And you don't have to stop and start your app to get to the state. And now all I'm doing here, you'll notice I'm not doing any data binding. I'm not doing anything too crazy or fancy. All I'm saying is, hey, I've got a button and I've got a count, and I increment that count, and then this text knows to update whenever that value changed because it was used there, which allows you to not have to think about, am I doing a one-way binding? Am I doing a two-way binding? What happens when I edit these things? All you do is you interact with your data objects, and the UI updates automatically for you, which is really, really exciting. And I got that for free by wrapping this count inside of a state. Any questions so far? No? Quiet crowd? All right, I really want to fix, I'm not going to fix that live. I'm going to fix that as soon as we're done, the back button pressing, because that's driving me nuts. But as I was saying with that state and having this body method, it allows for some really, really interesting things. So here's a more complicated sample. It's called the audit report. And the audit report, the first time we call this body, it says, hey, are we loading? And we'll see is loading equals false. So no, we're not loading. We're not loading. And if we are loading, we need to return an activity indicator. Oh, you guys switched to Twitch, so you guys are a tad bit delayed. Hopefully it's not too bad of a delay. Hopefully there was no issues with Skype. Sorry, sometimes Skype, it works pretty good most of the time, so hopefully there's no real big issues there. All right, so we have this activity indicator, and it has a color fuchsia because it's my favorite debug color. So I'm going to click into this, and you'll notice that the second thing, where do you learn Xamarin? There's lots of ways to learn about Xamarin. I definitely check out the the MS Learn stuff. It's a great resource. MS Learn, definitely check out MS Learn. I'm going to just get you a link really quick. If you go here, this is a great starting resource. Great starting resource. And the choosing between Xamarin Forms and Xamarin Native, I didn't build Xamarin, but I have been here since the beginning and helped with a lot of projects along the way. But that being said, yes, I've helped a lot with Xamarin and different Xamarin products. However, and yeah, I learned Xamarin just from being there from the beginning and just figuring it out. When I started, it was a different product altogether, so I've just been doing it for a long time. All right, but what's interesting now with this is loading thing is you'll say that if we're loading, we're going to return an activity indicator with the color fuchsia. Now, if this state, I just did really lazy, I just created a state with a list of these reports. If there are 0 reports, give us a button that says generate report. It's going to say is loading equals true, and then it's going to go and generate this report. I wrapped it in a try catch because whenever you're doing some of these things, it's nice to go off and do that. And then once we're done, set value equals the items for the reports, and then also is loading equals false. That's it. And then finally, if neither of those are true, we're just going to return this list. Give us a nice little list view with some items in it. Now this report actually runs a lot faster than I originally thought it was going to do. So we're just going to throw in here await task.delay, and let's put like a 3-second delay in there because it's fast. So that way we'll get to see the spinner. So I'm going to click generate report. Nope. Where'd our spinner go? Oh, the layout's broken on that one. I forgot. I'm doing very, very poorly at showing off how awesome Comet is because I'm showing off a couple views that I knew were broken and I forgot were broken. So yes, it has lots of videos. So I would start with some of the intro ones. Those Microsoft Learn ones are actually set as learning series. So they'll walk you through getting started with Xamarin and walk you through different concepts. So they build upon each other and they teach lots of different things. I know that's a lot of videos, but you'll notice there's like the Xamarin 101 series. Start with that if you're just starting out, and it'll be a series that'll be like an order. It'll be like a playlist. Start here and continue through. So there's lots of good resources on there. and start with like the 101. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'd start from the beginning. So layout is broken. The activity indicator did change. If we were to put breakpoints in here, let's stop and start this, put some breakpoints in here. Actually, before I do, I'm going to change the formatting so we can see what happens. But we'll notice this build method gets called. Things get set up. And just so we can see what gets returned. And then here, we'll do that one. And I'm going to run that again. Sorry, it's not visually showing it. We're writing our own layout engine for Comet. And every once in a while, we're running into a couple layout bugs because writing a layout engine is not fun. It's getting really, really close. But the idea is, since we're going to have a .NET cross-platform layout engine, once we're done with it, layout should be amazing and beautiful on any and all platforms. I didn't mention that the goal with Comet is to pretty much run everywhere. So this time we're saying, hey, count equals 0, we're going to return a button. Press play. Nope. Now I'm going to click generate report. And I don't see where our breakpoint is. Oh, it's right here on inside the button. So now it says, hey, we're loading, let's return true. We're not going to see the spinner, and the debugger looks like it's, nope, debugger's still going. My mouse, the buttons are dying in it, so it's double clicking a lot. All right, now it said, hey, we're going to return this list view. But as I said, sorry, layout is broken, so we're not actually seeing that list view. Some MVM, other XAML. So the XAML stuff is MVVM. If you're a Unity developer starting out, game development and development inside of things like Comet, they're very, very, very different. I like doing Unity stuff for fun. Hey, thanks for the follow. I can't see the name. Exxon TV. Thanks for following. It's really different. So game dev is just a totally different paradigm. I like building VR stuff in Unity and Unreal for fun in my spare time, which little spare time I have, and I love it. It's a blast, but it's very, 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 very different. It's not even close to the same. Paradigms are very different. Yes, you can use the same language, but you're going to need to learn a lot about mobile and how it works, or even desktop development is closer than game dev. So start at the 101. It'll help out, and it's going to explain some of how that works, and you're going to need to learn some new paradigms because Unity and mobile are very, very, very different. I wish they were more similar, but it makes sense that they're not because, yes, they're very different. All right, so I'm going to ditch this sample because I know that one's broken. And eventually, though, you can start getting to where you can do some really complex samples. This one, I'll double click into it and show it to you. The code is crazy on it because all of this is done by using shapes and things like that, and it builds a very complex thing. And in the end, though, it makes it to where we can just data bind things and not think about it. And you can fill out a credit card view with very little code. We have this credit card data object, which has a binding object. Binding object is a new object that is created temporarily in Comet. It probably will stay around, but it will change the way it works. Right now, to use it, you need to do this whole get set thing. This takes care of all the notifications with iNotify property change and things like that. You can implement an interface if you want magic data binding, or you can use the binding object. Eventually, I'm going to write some code gen stuff, so you don't have to write any of this boilerplate code. You'll be able to attribute your class with like binding object or just subclass binding object, and I will magically do all of these things for you. Oh, did people leave? Did I miss something? Hopefully I haven't lost everything, lost everybody. It's all right. We'll keep going. So this is for now just temporary code because I made it easy, but now you don't have to deal with all the notification stuff. You just say, hey, get property, set property, and off it goes. Now when I'm using this thing inside this complicated sample, all it's saying is, hey, we have a text, and the text has card.cvv. And now the entry is going to reflect that whenever that changes. Yes, this is all on GitHub. That's the first question. So Comet, you can go check this stuff out. And question about the frequency of updating, view checking, and is loading. It is not working based on frames per second or anything else like that. That's why these state objects and data type stuff are needed, because I don't loop. I do it based off notification. So when those values changed, so if we go back to that other one, this audit report, you'll notice that this build method did not go or did not run again until I clicked the button. Because when this value changes, I know about it. I'm subscribing and listening to all the event handler stuff for when either of these things change. So when they change, I can do lots of really fancy things. So you'll notice if I go back to, since I can't go back, I can't believe I broke going back yesterday. This was yesterday's code that broke that. Such bad timing. If I put a breakpoint in this button sample for when this body is built, it's only going to build once, which is really, really awesome. So button sample, it's going to build one time, and now when I click increment, it's not being called again. It doesn't have to. It knows when and how these values were being used. So it knows that count was used during when we build this view during this build process. I pay attention and listen to everything. Super spy going on here, paying attention to everything that changes and how and when it's used. So I know it was used when building this text value. So when this thing changes, I know I can just reevaluate this text method. And I don't have to do things on a timer. I don't have to do it like on FPS. It happens instantly because I'm listening to when that value's changed now, and I'm going to just reevaluate this. Now, in the instance of that audit report, I know that isLoading was used to determine which UI was built. I can figure that out because it wasn't used while constructing anything. It was used during the base of the body. So at this case, I'm not even listening to reports yet. If we're loading, I don't care what reports does. Reports can toggle, do whatever it wants. I don't care. I'm not going to update based on that because I'm only listening for isLoading right now because that's what was used for this activity indicator. Now, when isLoading is toggled or not working, it's going to jump down and say, okay, now we're listening to reports value. Okay, so when the reports value changes, we're going to either show the button or we're going to show the list. And so when those values change, the UI is going to it's going to rebuild the body accordingly. Can you use C code compiling with GCC and Xamarin and deploy it to different platforms? Absolutely you can. It's just a bit of work binding those things, but absolutely you can. Great examples of that are things like Skia Sharp. Skia Sharp does that. And absolutely. And I use Skia Sharp in this. So I'm using a C library for any of my Skia drawings. So yeah. Now I haven't talked animations yet. It's probably one of the next cool things to talk about, because I wanted to make sure that these things were really simple and easy to use. So if I go to an animation sample, I wanted you to not have to think about how things work or what goes on. So with things like this, you can just say, hey, I'm creating a text. At the end, I can say .animate. Just with the same exact Fluent design I'm doing, I'll just say, all right, .animate. And it's going to pass that text value into it. So Skia Sharp, I will bring up, I probably have the GitHub. So Skia Sharp is a 2D drawing layer. This builds in, it's Skia is a drawing library from Google, and it's all C and things like that. And so we bring it in, and this shows how, it's a very complex example, but it shows how to use a C++ one. Or it's a C, no, I think it's just C or C+. I think this one's just C, but yes, Skia Sharp. There's some smaller samples. There's an automation library for doing something with, I'm trying to remember, it's a smaller one that we were working on, Matt and I were working on a year or two ago during a hackathon. Can't remember the name of it right now. It's a smaller sample. Actually, let me see if I can find it. Get my on Rosie. We were doing something on. Is it the Z-Wave one? I haven't worked on this thing in a while. I was hoping this would tell us. I don't remember. It's not telling us. Matt was helping work on doing a data binding for a specific library, and I can't remember which one it is now. I don't remember. But it was a smaller sample. Maybe I can find that and post that later. All right. So, animations though. This one, if I remove this is the simplest form of an animation. Animate. Oh, it's going to recall that body because I just hot reloaded. Whenever we hot reload, it rebuilds everything. So on this one, I can just say, hey, this text I want to automate. And I'll say text.background is blue, and its text color is orange, and its font size is 30. Now, it's going to animate that over 0.2 seconds or something like that. I did add some extra code in there to say, hey, I want this duration to be 3 seconds. I want you to repeat this animation, so keep doing it over and over again. And I also want you to auto reverse it. So when it starts on its starting color of background is orange and its foreground of blue, and then this swaps them. So now what it's going to do is once it's done, that 3 second it's going to animate, it's going to animate back to its initial state automatically. And it's just going to keep looping that. And it's going to do that indefinitely. On this one, I wanted to do something a tad bit more complex. I want to say, hey, let's do an animation sequence. Let's just animate this text background color and the button color to fuchsia and green, to Alice blue, to beige, and I just keep changing all these things as much as I wanted to for a 1 second duration. And I say, hey, this is a sequence, so just do this whole thing as a sequence. Just go one after the next, after the next, after the next, and repeat that. And so animating is just changing the values. And it's going to pay attention to what changed during that animation sequence. And then it's just going to animate it for you. And I'm animating color changes without really having to do anything. Oh, I forgot I can't go backwards. So annoying. I promise I'm going to have this fixed within the next 30 minutes after me ending this live stream. Or maybe at the end of the meetup part, we'll just fix it live if anyone wants to, because that is killing me. All right, animation sample I thought was towards the top. There's an animated Skia sample. I also allow you to animate Skia the same way, which is, I shouldn't have went into that because I can't go back. I'm not used to stopping and starting. Hot reloading is so nice that I don't even do that. All right, and so you'll notice that this text, this one is animating its font size and its colors, like we said, on an infinite loop, just going back and forth between orange and blue, alternating, and this one just gets bigger. And all I had to do was just say hey, .animate, and loop, and this button toggles the animations. So hey, toggle animations, if you can catch it because it moves. And it just says, hey, should we be animating? If so, resume, else pause. Which is pretty fun. Really exciting how simple it is to do that. And I'll show one more complex sample before I think I've covered most of the basics and what's fun about it. I can't go back. That's going to drive me nuts. I'm not used to not being able to go back. I should have fully tested my demo this morning, but I realized that my OBS scenes weren't set up right, so I couldn't actually switch OBS scenes, and that was more complicated at the time to fix. So I fixed that, and then, yeah, I figured the live stream was more important than my code working, so I didn't test my code. I just tested live stream. All right, so inside of here, we can go. How many times did I deploy the app? Normally when I'm coding, I deploy once and then I just don't keep, I'm just done at that point. I just deploy once and just live code. And every once in a while I have to reload because you can't reload everything. but I can reload pretty much everything. And so if you watch my other live streams where I'm working on Comet, I'm building UI controls and stuff without stopping and starting. I just tweak little things, keep going, and I deploy once and just code. I redeploy every 10 minutes sometimes just because. I'm like, oh, I'll stop, go to somewhere else in the app and start doing other things, but I don't. And a lot of times it's out of habit. I stop and start just because that's what you're used to doing, and it's hard to break that habit. So most of my redeploying is out of habit, not because I had to. Right now I'm doing it because I broke my library, and it's really, really frustrating. And I'm sorry. I will fix that as soon as we're done here. I was going to show the drawing sample stuff. That's what it was, and that's under here. So I think it's finger painting samples or one of these. All right, it's one of these ones. Is it customized? Absolutely. So the whole concept of renderers kind of goes away with Comet, which is really nice. So you can create, we have what are called handlers, and each platform has their handlers. And I didn't show you the handler code, and I probably should. Our handler code is going to look very different than what you're used to seeing in Xamarin Forms. And later this week, I'm planning on recording a couple videos to explain how to contribute to Comet, and handlers are a great way of doing that. So let's look at a text handler. Yeah, I just hot reload everything. And I can hot reload my handlers, I can hot reload my app, I can hot reload the code I'm writing, like even for building Comet. I hot reload Comet, which is pretty awesome. So this is the equivalent of a renderer in Xamarin Forms. So if you're from the Xamarin Forms world, there's something new here called this mapper. And this mapper makes it to where you don't need to build your own custom renderers. What this does is it pays attention to, it says, all right, so we're going to have an abstract control as something that exists on the iOS side, just as a convenience method. You don't have to use this, but I recommend you do. So you say, hey, we're going to use a Comet text, and we're going to tie this to a UI label. And what that'll do is it gives you a method now for create that you override for create label, and you create the default label. Now, whenever something changes, so whenever the Comet text value, the text.value change, you have this method called map value property. And what that does is it's going to grab that native UI view, and it's just going to set its value and then say, hey, you know, we should reevaluate the measurements because the text value changed, so its measurements could change. So if you're centering, it wiggles around. And we have one of those for text alignment, and then we have one for the font stuff. So whenever the font stuff changes, go fix your fonts, or line break mode, things like that. So whenever one of those changes, go call that method. This is the whole thing. This is the entire thing of a label. Now, if I don't like what we're doing with fonts, or let's just say whenever a text changes, let me go, this part does not hot reload. It's one of the few things that does not hot reload. But if I go into my sample, I can go into the app delegate or wherever you want to do it. But at any point, I can just say, we'll just say after we initialize the UI, you got to make sure you do it before you initialize the UI. But I can just do text handler. You know, I don't like what you're doing, text handler, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change what you do. I'm going to go to your mapper and I'm going to say whenever the text value changes, let me do this because I don't like what you're doing. I will now say this one is the Comet view, and then this one is the view handler. It's going to call this and let me deal with it. Now I can just say, hey, text handler, do what you normally do. Dot map text value or dot value property, and I can pass on Comet view and view handler. Let it do its thing. Why my IDE is locking up? Sorry about that. And so I can say, hey, go do your thing, and now I'm going to do something after the fact. So I'm going to just say, for some strange reason, whenever this happens, I'm going to change the text now to be like add in my own substring. I'm going to tag everything because I want to. I can do that. Or I can, if this was an entry, so instead of doing this with a text handler, I can say text text field dot mapper. I can say whenever this thing, no, text field handler dot mapper. I can say I'm going to change the entry style, the keyboard style. I don't like what you're doing there, so I'm going to inject in at that level and say on iOS, I'm going to force this to be a number keyboard. I can do that, even though I never exposed that to the cross-platform or to anything else. So I can come in here and inject and do whatever I want. And you say, hey, so we've got these little predefined ones, right, for when these things change. But if we look at what sets those, it's all extension methods. You can add your own. The font sizing and the font changing, all we do is set an environment variable, and you can override those yourself, which is really freaking awesome because I can come in here and add my own special extensions for my app that only work on iOS or only work on Android, or they work differently based on the platform because I want them to be different per platform. That's it. You just inject in. So I can add in a new extension for the keyboard style because that was something we just brought up. If I go into my sample and I go into like this binding sample as an entry field, this one does the same thing. Hey, if you can edit this field, give me a text field, else give me a label, a text, which is a label. But I can just at the end of this text thing say dot set environment and I can say my special key, and then I can say foo. I can pass anything into here. And let me hit enter so you can see what's going on here. Oh, actually, I did that at the wrong place. I'm glad I hit enter. I need to do that. Let me undo all that. Oh, no, that's in the right place. So I can, at any point, just say set environment foo, put that in the right place, and it'll work. And now, if I hook into the text field on my app delegate, I can do text field handler dot mapper my special field. That's what I call it, right? I would not just do them as magic strings. I'd put them as constant somewhere. And I'm going to get a call now because we set my special field on that one label. That one field, text entry. So because of that, we can inject in at the platform-specific level per platform and change one property, override one property, instead of having to subclass a renderer and override things. Can you mix MVVU with an old MVVM app? Absolutely. On Twitch a while ago, I did something like that. I was rewriting Gmusic in Xamarin Forms, and I added one screen as Comet. Absolutely, you can. It's really easy to do. I need to, inside of, there's one view that I don't have committed anywhere, aside from in that one repo. That's the magic sauce for doing that. So gmusic.forms, if I go to the Comet branch, I added in one of the commits, and I'll paste this in here. But this is an example of how to do that. And in this commit history, when I first added Comet, you'll notice I added in Comet hot reload, but I added this. I added a Comet view renderer that told Forms how to render Comet. That was all I had to do. So this one special thing, and now I have a Comet view for Forms. And I can just do, you'll notice as I'm building this, I did same exact looking code. Artist songs view. It has the build. It has the body. That was it. Super awesome. Super easy to do. And it now knows how to handle everything. So yes, you can mix and match. One thing that you'll notice right now, in the current Xamarin, or the current Comet, I'm still setting up a new UI window, and I'm doing root view controller, and I'm doing .to view controller. These extensions exist to bring Comet into existing apps. Now, I am in the process of, on a branch, I have an app model branch that I've been working on this last week that will allow you to do like new Comet app, and then it'll take care of all this nonsense for you. So you can choose to use a Comet app, or you can choose to just embed Comet into your existing app. All right, any more questions? I think we've covered most of the stuff I wanted to show off. I can switch over to that app model stuff and show you what that looks like. Leave changes. Overwrite the stash, that's fine. And then let me switch, reload from disk. Let me switch projects because I was working on Gmusic, of course, into Comet. Don't save. All right, and oh, you locked yourself in, Layla? My dog just locked herself in my office. So what that would look like, and like I said, I am building all of this live in front of everybody. I work on most of this, not everything, but I work on most of it inside of or on Twitch. And I'm doing it all open source, so you can see it all happen. And so in this one, my end goal with this app model is to make it to where you don't even need the iOS head. You can create it if you want, but you don't have to have it. And you'll notice that's basically all I have there. Why is this off? Let me just open up Comet and see why it's complaining. Comet iOS. It did this to me the other day. Yeah. I don't know why it didn't add existing file. Comet app delegate. I don't know how that got left out of the project. Saving everything. Let me add that in there. Somehow I didn't commit that in there. All right. I don't want to change that changing. All right. So what this did though is it gives me a Comet app delegate, and I didn't really. All you have to do is say, hey, Comet is going to create this new Comet app, which is a Gmusic app, and Gmusic is going to do like, hey, my hot reload init, and it's going to do a new Gmusic style, which has nothing in it yet. I just added it to show, hey, I can create my own styles. Oh, I was playing with subtitle text. I want my subtitles to be a light color. And I also did something for setting my database so it's globally accessible to things. Because if I press play, this allows me to hot reload basically anything. Since I'm bringing my database from there, I can go to Comet and I have my song view. And my song view says, hey, go get me my database from the environment. And you'll notice that this thing says, hey, when we're building songs, I put this here so I had breakpoints to see what was going on. But I say, hey, go get the songs. Now I can jump over to my database, which just implements that interface. Now if I comment this out, it should go trigger a hot reload. I got an exception. Why'd I? Oh, UI consistency. Okay, that was an iOS crash. Something didn't notify on the proper thread. Thought I fixed that too. I ran into this the other day. Let me try this one more time. And if not, I know how to fix that. Curse that. We can fix that. That's an easy fix. That's a super easy fix. I totally thought I told... Yes, I know the debugger stop. Let's go. Binding property changed. State. This right here, I could have sworn maybe I didn't commit it. Or maybe I committed it on the other branch. So right here, if I do thread helper, is this an async thing? No, that one's not. Thread helper dot invoke on or run on main thread. There we go. That'll fix it. Fixed. Now I'll be able to hot reload. Look at that, fixing my library live for you guys. All right, ignore that. Let's close that. Let's run it again. Or I could have just told iOS not to care about cross-thread checks, but I should care. All right, so now if I go to my database, but it was hot reloading it, we can toggle curse the same crash. I totally fixed this. Yeah, I fixed this yesterday. I think it's on my other branch. Every once in a while, this thing changes. All right, I totally fixed this. And now I have to rewrite it. All right. Either way, what's happening is with a list view, it's tricky because a list changes and you can't use, if I'm changing a list of things that happen, it freaks out. So if I do it enough time, if I do it twice, it'll eventually work. It doesn't always crash. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But if I do it twice, it'll always work. Stupid thing. And that's just on the reload knowing. It's like, oh, you're running link on a collection that changed. And it's like, yeah, of course I did. No big deal. There, it worked that time. It's a race condition. So sometimes it crashes, sometimes it doesn't. But I fixed that. Hey, and it's not doing it again. Stupid race conditions. I know what it is, and I did fix it on another branch, I guess. But you can see how I'm hot reloading my database class. This is not a Comet anything. All I'm doing is, since I have a static init, if you have a static init on any class, when it's hot reloaded, it's going to call that method for me. And so we can see in the outputs, hey, we replaced this view, it changed. And all I do is I say, hey, set the global database to my database. And I can change this so it's nicer, so it's not all magic strings. Name of database, and I'm getting that same crash again. But now my database, since my song view is saying, hey, go get me the database from the environment, whenever the database changes inside the environment, it's going to trigger that hot reload and use my new database, which is super exciting, to where if this wasn't crashing on that race condition, which is fixed on the other branch, we don't have those issues, which is super exciting to be able to, in most instances. And right now, I'm not catching things during the hot reloads. The end goal is I want to see these errors and have them blow up so I can debug them as I'm working on it. I'm going to change it to where when it's not in like my own debug mode, it's going to, instead of crashing like it does, you're going to get a little pop-up. There was an error hot reloading the view. And then it'll tell you what was wrong, so that way if it's a bogus one, just change another character and it'll hot reload again. If not, it'll tell you, oh, go fix this in my app. Because if I do something wrong or my view can't load, it's going to crash the app. Whereas that's against the spirit of hot reload. So eventually I'm going to throw that in there. So it'll do this little pop-up. Sorry. It's just a little bar that'll then fade away. So it's not even, you don't even have to click OK. It'll just be like, error, try again. And then as you continue coding and you fix your coding errors, it will fix itself. So, well, I'll get there. I'll get there. Just not there yet. Too many other things to work on. But yeah, so this app is really simple to where I'm able to say, this is my Gmusic app, apply the style, set the database, give me my root view. My root view is a tab view with a couple navigations and some song, and the song view and the album view and whatnot. Why can't you navigate to that? There we go. And now we're back to our song view. And the song view is just saying, hey, we're a list view of the songs. And I wouldn't pull all of my songs out of the database. That's dumb. But for prototyping, it was just the easiest way to do it. I'll switch it to where it uses a virtualized list, not a static list. You never want to pull all your things out unless you know it's only like 5 things. If you have like 5 settings, sure, pull the settings out of the database, then make a list off of them. But the list view API should be nice and simple. It's a list view, view for, and it's going to pass back my song, and I say it's an H stack, the song artwork URL. All of this stuff magically data binds as well. If for some reason the song title changed because you went to an edit screen and edited it, this would auto magically data bind just because I passed in song.title into the text. All right, any other questions? If not, I think we're towards the end of the time we were planning on doing for the meetup. I have no problem fixing this stupid back button crash because it's killing me. Will navigating here work? Ah, yes, hello, you're back. Yes, Q&A time. Mm-hmm. No, during hot reload, I don't press save. I just type code. And as long as the code is valid, it will hot reload. If it's not valid code, it won't hot reload. And so it just keeps reloading and reloading and reloading. And it does it, I have a little character debounce thing. So after you stop typing for half a second or 1 second, I try to hot reload. And if I can, I do. If I can't, I don't. So I was having a crash in the framework when I pressed my back button, which was making me stop and start. But during normal hot reloads, there's no stopping, no starting, no saving. You just type. And like I said, I have a couple crashes right now, and I fixed one of them, but it didn't work. And I'm just doing it right now, commenting out the title, and off it goes. Not yet. So there is plans to support CSS. I have to support CSS because I allow you to deploy this to Blazor, and also to bring in the Blazor stuff, I need to do CSS. So no, not yet. Also on Twitch, someone asked, Xamarin has some tools like Xcode to build your app, moving elements, inserting, not with code. Yes, we do have some stuff like that. For like storyboards in iOS. We do let you use Xcode if you're doing like native iOS. We have some tools like that for Android. Xamarin Forms does not have a drag and drop designer. It uses XAML, but the XAML experience is pretty good. So yes, answer that question. All right, any other questions? Not implemented yet, but it's going to be similar to list view. It's just not built yet. I'm looking for pull requests. um, but yes, right now there are missing controls. I will be adding a collection view, and it's going to be a very similar API to the list view. So, except it'll add a layout. That's the only difference. I think it's the recycler view. That was some of the original code done. It's been a while. Let me switch projects and we can double check that. It's been a while since list view is like one of the first ones I always build when I'm doing a new framework because it's hard. Don't save. Let's just jump over to here. I believe it is a recycler view, but I will know in a second. As soon as it launches, I have a beach ball. I'm on an early internal preview of Visual Studio for Mac, and the last couple days it's gotten a lot slower. So I need to complain that it's slowed down in the past couple days because it was so snappy. It's thinking hard. And I thought I was just doing a Xamarin Forms, like building Xamarin Forms, which is huge. All right, Comet platforms. Let's expand platforms out. Wow, this is slow. And I'm not even like CPU bound. Mono SGen's doing something. Yeah, I'm not CPU bound at all. Okay, so handlers, list view, and list view is using a recycler view. Yes. Many questions on that? But yeah, it's a recycler view. Any other questions? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So are you doing your gradients? Is that all doing the native APIs, or are you bringing in something like Skia? I can't remember. Excuse me. All right. So since you're doing Skia, let me show you some stuff with Skia. So you guys can't see my screen right now, can you? All right. So these are Skia controls. And you'll notice this has fancy animation. These are Skia drawn. Do you see the subtle, like, this is animated Skia. And I did not have to write anything to do that. I got animations for free because of the Comet animation framework. So I will show you some of the Skia code to do that. Now, just in the same vein as I want you to be able to override any property without subclassing my handlers or the renderers, however you want to think of it, I allow you to override drawing a single layer inside of my Comet views. So if I go to Skia Comet and I go to this handler, let's go to the button handler. So I have on these, I have the same property mapper, but I also have a drawing mapper, and the button handler didn't need to override when it just uses the default one, which tells it the order. If I go to the slider handler, this one has one. So the slider handler says, hey, we're drawing the track, we're drawing the progress, and we're drawing the thumb. And we have the static, draw the slider, draw the thumb, which will in turn call into the slider and does it, right? So draw the slider, draw the thumb. So you can override my drawing code. You'll notice I have no animation code in here. I don't have to. I can or let's look at the button one. In the button one, I have, when the control state changes, this is my animation code. I figure out where the touch point was, so I can animate. You'll notice that animates a circle out from wherever you touch. So if I touch on this side, it animates from that side. So I get the touch point, and then I say, hey, animate. I figure out the radius. I get the radius, what it should be. And then I say this dot animate, and I set the padding, and I set the end radius, or I set the radius. That's it. I set what that radius is going to be. Now, when I'm drawing that background color, all I have to say is environment, get my radius. And I say, hey, if the radius is less than 0, don't draw, or I mean, is greater than 0, and whatever, draw the radius. Else draw the normal background. That's it. That's my animation for animating Skia. And if I want to do my own manual stuff, I can do a lerp. I do have like 0.5 lerp stuff. I have some of that, so you can do some of your own animation tweening stuff, to where I tween on the radius. But yeah, I'm not doing any fancy animation at all. All my animation was just saying this.animate, and I set the values I want to. And if I told it to animate a background color, every time that background color changes, it's going to redraw, and in turn, I just ask for that background color, and it's going to be whatever the current background color is. Really exciting to be able to animate Skia that way. And this is hot reloadable. So on that button, right now I'm doing this. I can go into the button handler where we draw the background. Let's just do draw background. I am going to just say return here. So I'm saying we don't draw our background. Now when I click, you'll notice it's not drawing the background anymore. Or I can change the color to where instead of default color, color.transparent is color.fuchsia. And instantly it hot reloads. And I'm hot reloading my Skia code, which is really exciting. And let's undo that because fuchsia should not be the default color for a background. And it makes it really fun to actually work on these controls and build them because, yeah, I just code. Just code. All right, any other questions? Yeah, it is early stages. You may find bugs. You might run into issues. Overall, it's pretty good. You may see a layout issue here or there. I file those bugs if you run into them. Um, right now, the only active bugs are ones that I filed that I are just like to get to these. There's no active bugs of people who are using it. So the goal is to try and keep it that way as long as possible. I mean, eventually it's possible to be overwhelmed, but file bugs. I'll work on those. Yeah, and if you have any questions, I am on Discord, guys. Social. There's lots of ways to get a hold of me. Join the Discord server. There's people who actually understand Comet as well, not just me, who can answer some questions depending on what you have. And I'm working on this all the time. And I'm live streaming this all the time as I work on it. Since we're done, I'm probably going to go fix that back error because that is driving me insane. Let me commit this really quick. Date changes should happen on red. Did I have another one I fixed? Nope. I need to fix that one. All right. Before I switch. Now let me switch to the deb branch. Unless you guys have other things you want to do. Anything else you guys want to talk about? If not, I want to fix this thing before I go nuts. Let's fix this. Let's fix going back because, and I think I know, so, and I can explain what the issue was. So I ran into, while building the way the environment works and me sending notifications, my binding stuff was sending aggressively too many notifications. And I trimmed down the notifications because it was actually causing an infinite loop. Um, it was sending a global notification whenever a frame changed for some reason. I don't know why it was ever doing that. So inside of a list view, if the frame changed on this list view, it told the parent the frame changed, and it just caused an infinite loop. And I fixed that, but I think I broke something while doing it. So let's press back. Let's find this. What is this exception? Contextual object is null. Well, that's interesting. How is the view null? All right, that's actually not what I thought it was at all. If view equals null, return. Well, that's an easy fix. I should have looked at that earlier. So this happens, that shouldn't have been, I'm curious why that was happening though. I'm still going to put a breakpoint there because I want to see why that happened. Pressing back, we're laying out a view, and that virtual view is null. That's such a... So right now we go through and we say the virtual view, we're null checking there. To be completely honest, we can even say if virtual view is null. So if everything is null, we don't need to reload or do any of this stuff. All right. So this happens with swapping out that view. It was swapping out what its content was, and it was in the process of swapping out, and it was trying to reload it, so relay out stuff. Let's just hope I didn't break something by doing that. We'll test, but no, we're good. You'll notice, there was a flash there. That review got removed too soon. It gets removed before the animation is finished. That's what's actually causing that. And I know how to fix that. I think. Maybe I don't. The way that handles is inside there is a navigation view. And if my IDE will catch up, on popping, pop to view controller, I kill it out. I need to await or wait for that to finish. I wonder if there's something else. I might have to do some research on what I can tie into. Or I can try tying into, what happens if I override this one? Because I need to know when the thing is completed. Hmm. Will animate second half of rotation. Did animate. I wonder if there's a did animate for second. Oh, nope. Deprecated function. Alright, that is not used anymore. So I fixed it. The problem is I was removing the view too soon, but I wonder why that's just now causing a crash. Because, yeah, that's odd. Alright, I'm unsure. Let's see if that's called in. But that's what was causing is I clear out that view so that way we're not holding on to any references and it can be cleaned up. But I need to do it after it's done being dismissed. It never even called this one. I mean, I could do something as lame as telling it to clear itself off when that view is no longer appear. That would work. So I can teach this thing. Getting a notification. So we can teach this one. I think what I'm going to do, if you guys want to fix that animation, hang out for that. We'll fix that animation, then we'll end. That should just be, what we'll do is, all right, so now what we'll do is on here, we will say Comet VC. I wish I could just do, I'm going to change that. So bool, and then public void opt equals true. Now the reason I just changed that was I like to be able to write code like this. Done. All right, so that changed. So now I can say was popped on view. Actually, what all code did I just have there? All right, so now what we'll say on view did disappear. Oh no, did appear, will appear, did disappear. We'll do that. Now what I can do, say if was popped, we'll say current view dot dispose current view equals null. Clear it all out. All right. Now we shouldn't get that. Now our stuff should animate better. And I can't hot reload that thing. I haven't taught it how to hot reload the native iOS directly. It can hot reload handlers. Any handler, it can hot reload. It knows how to handle that. It knows what to do. Random class like this, it doesn't know what to do with that. So can't do that. Or my app delegate. How in the world would you hot reload an app delegate? There. Now, and I want to make sure that's actually still being disposed of. Oh, oh no, it is. Okay, breakpoint hit. Perfect. There we go. That's better. Much better. All right, let's add all that in. Nope, we don't need that nonsense. All right, we'll do that. All right, fixed iOS navigation. Views now properly animate out. All right. bug fixed. I should have just done that in the first time it happened, and everyone would have been happier. Oh, it's so nice to be able to navigate again, guys. You have no idea. No idea. Okay. Perfect. And then I can actually show that the Skia sample 3. This is kind of cool. So also with Skia stuff, you can data bind to, oh, those buttons are broken because of the style still there. And say you can data bind if buttons work. Let's go back to the sample, iOS sample, app delegate, and let's remove my styles. So when you add the material style, I add a clip shape, and adding clipping shape breaks